Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing tonight? It's good to see everyone. Hey, from the 3021, how are you? Hey, Miranda. Good to see you. Hey, Tech Death. How are you? Hey, John. How are you doing? I wanted to ask you, John, if you get time, could you email me? I have a question that I want to ask you. Um, I would appreciate it very much. Hey, Lynn. How are you? I appreciate everyone who's joining tonight. I don't um, normally do a Monday night, but I didn't do any lives this weekend. So I really felt like I needed to do a Delphi um, live because I just felt like there were some things that I wanted to touch on regarding some of the conversations that we had last week. Hey, Judy. Good to see you. So glad you're here. Hi, Deborah. Hey, Daisy. Good evening. I'm so happy to have you all here. I want to do some housekeeping, as I always do. Hey, Dragonette. One of the things that I wanted to remind everyone is that tomorrow night I have a live interview with Ash from Ashes to Ash TV. She has an amazing YouTube channel. She is a documentary filmmaker. She devotes one whole season to one case. She's pretty amazing, and I'm really excited to introduce her to you. I've been a fan of hers for about 3 years now, and I'm just really excited that she's going to come on. I think you guys will really enjoy listening to some of the things that she does because she's an investigative reporter who actually goes out into the communities of where these cases happen, and she interviews, she investigates, and she reports back what she's found, and it's really quite interesting. She also likes to touch on cases where law enforcement has kind of dropped the ball. The community has rallied around the victims, um, but law enforcement has kind of not. So her cases are very interesting. From the 3021, she has not covered Delphi. Um, she does have a reason for why she has not covered it. I'll let her talk about that tomorrow night. Hey, Digital. Always good to see you and have you here in the chat with us. So that's happening on Tuesday night. And then on Friday night, I have Crime and Wine. Hey, 1L Michelle. So happy to have you here. Welcome to our chat. I hope you will enjoy it. So on Friday night, I have Crime and Wine with the captain from True Crime Garage and Skip Jansen. It'll be the first time the two of them have been together since last August when they did their series on Delphi, True Crime Garage with Skip. So that should be a really interesting show. It is a question and answer show. So they are going to be taking questions from you all. So from everyone who comes into the chat. And that was per request of the captain. So I'm fine with that, and I think it'll be really good. I like True Crime Garage. I think Nick and the captain do great work. And I really like their podcast. So that's what's coming up the rest of this week. And hey, Dave, thank you so much. I certainly appreciate that. No, Miranda, that's on Friday night. Tomorrow night is my interview with Ash from Ashes to Ash TV. She is a really, really good investigative reporter who does documentary filmmaking. And hang on one second, I'm going to drop her. Just give me one moment because I'm going to drop her YouTube channel in the comments, so you guys have it if you want to go out and check her out. I highly recommend it. She is so worth watching. Okay, so there's Ash's channel. I also want to give a shout out to Tech Death Hippie, who, hey Grizz, how are you? I'm so glad to see you here. I've missed you. I want to give a shout out to Tech Death Hippie. He has done the music. If you listen to my intro, that music is his. He's truly an amazing artist. And you guys need to go subscribe and like his channel if you haven't already. He just really does good work. He's done a lot of work for a lot of YouTubers. He's also done the music for Cop Fax's latest short film. He was asked to do that, which is a huge honor for that film. So, yeah, just give him a subscription and a like for me. Melodramatic Monday, thank you so much. It's good to see you. And I do appreciate that. I really do like to interview. And like I said, I hope you guys will get a lot out of it this week. I think it'll be a good thing. One of the things that I want to talk about tonight, there's quite a few, and it's going to be, you're going to probably feel like I'm jumping kind of all over the place a little bit, which, hey, I might be, but just bear with me while I do this. Hey, Jess Pam. How good to see you tonight. So there's a couple of things we're going to talk about. The first thing that I want to go over is I want to talk about crime scene staging and posing. I think it's really important for us to get a handle on exactly what it is and how often it happens, and just give us some basic information, factual information on how rare it is, because it is extremely rare. And for all of my listeners that are just out there listening, I appreciate you guys so very much. Just because you don't comment in the chat, I know you're out there watching and listening, and that means the world to me. So thank you. And for everyone who's been supporting the channel with donations and other ways, like Tech Death with his music, Grismatically did all of my graphics for my intro. I just appreciate all of you that's reached out, that's wanted to help. I really, really appreciate it so much. Hey, Lipsha, how are you? So we're going to talk about crime scene staging and posing. And there's a case that comes to mind in my head that really stands out for this. Probably none of us were alive for it. However, maybe there may be people out there listening that were alive for this case, but it was January 15th, 1947, and was Elizabeth, I can't even talk tonight, I'm so sorry, Elizabeth Smart. She was the Black Dahlia. And what happened to her and what happened to her case is very, very sad. There's been a number of movies made, documentaries made, a ton of books written. Hey, Miss Thing, so good to see you. Hi, Jari, Nadia, good to have you guys here. Better late than never. So anyway, getting back to her, it happened in 1947, and the first person that happened upon the scene was an Examiner reporter from Los Angeles. His name was Will Fowler, and he took some photographs of her, and just some really salacious things happened because a reporter was the first person on the scene. For those of you who are not familiar with her case, she was completely nude. She was posed, and she was posed with her arms above her head, and she was cut in half at the waist, and her body was pulled apart, and her legs were spread out. So her body had been posed, and her crime scene had been staged. One of the things that happened in her case, when you read about it, police were not aware or had not seen much staging or posing at this stage in law enforcement. It was such a rarity, and it still is. They were absolutely shocked by what they saw. She was a beautiful 22-year-old woman who had come to Hollywood in hopes of becoming an actress. You know, how many stories have we heard of that? Young women who head off to New York or to Hollywood, and they're looking to be discovered, and something horrific happens to them. She was no different. Like I said, she was 22. She was beautiful. She had this striking black hair, beautiful eyes. I mean, she just was a very beautiful and photogenic woman. She was homeless, basically, at the time of her death, and she was staying with people on and off, and moving around, couch surfing, I think maybe we would call it nowadays. But the press basically raked her over the coals. They talked about her being not having the best life, not having money, the fact that she didn't have a home. They basically blamed her for what happened to her because she was living a life of, as they put it, she was at risk. And I just think that this case speaks greatly to what can happen when the press or others can get out of hand when talking about victims and victim blaming, because it's exactly what happened to her case. And you have to wonder why her case has never been solved. What happened that kept her case from being solved? Was there a true want to have her case solved? So Crime scene staging and sexual posing are recognizable dynamics in homicide investigations. They have been documented thoroughly and they've been studied. They're accepted by the courts as a definable phenomenon that happens in homicide investigations. And the act of leaving a victim's body in an unusual position is a conscious criminal act by an offender, either to shock the finder of the body, to thwart the investigation or investigators at the crime scene, or to give perverted pleasure to the killer. It can also be to humiliate the victim. The relative occurrence of this type of crime scene manipulation is noted as very rare, extremely rare, and only 1.3% of homicide victims were left in an unusual position. And of those, 0.3% were being posed, and 0.1% were staged, compared to other murder victims. And one of the things that we will talk about a little bit here is the difference between posing and staging. One thing about the staging of a crime scene, the victims are often older on average, and they are disproportionately white females. Females stand out as the victims when the body is sexually posed, staged, or left in unusual positions. And posed bodies are often seen in sexual assault serial murders. Binding was most often used to bind the victim, most often their wrists behind their backs, as well as a knife was more often used as a hands-on means of killing the victim, such as stabbing or cutting weapons. 1% of staging and posing murders occur in the lifetime of most homicide detectives. So you can see how, hey Michelle, good to see you. Hey Unsolved Crimes Undercover or Uncovered, I'm sorry. It's good to see you. Hey Dee. So you can see that most police officers, most detectives anyway, that are investigating homicides, they don't see this very often in their careers. And their careers can span 30 plus years. So these guys stay on the force, especially in the homicide area. There was one study that was shown that of 44,451 murder cases, there were 428 cases of sexual posing homicides. So that shows you right there how rare it truly is. And the mode of death in those particular cases, 71% was strangulation, 20% were stabbings, and 7% was blunt force trauma, and 2% were other. Now, posing and staging is a very hotly debated topic within the crime scene community. And one of the reasons is because some people believe that posing is a subset of staging. Some experts say sexual posing is a subset of staging. Some experts believe that the two of them are one and the same. There are experts who say that staging has to do with the area around the body, so the crime scene around the body, and posing obviously has to do with the body. And when we're determining motivation for these posing and staging crime scenes, fantasy is number one at 71%. So sadists, they are all about the sexual fantasy and the ritual. That's what it's all about to them. They have built this fantasy in their mind, this very deviant, depraved fantasy, and they act it out. And when they act it out, that's when the posing and the staging of the scene can happen. So, retaliation is second, which at 22%. And the reason for the retaliation and the staging and posing is because it's to punish or degrade the victim. Staging the scene itself is 7%. And the reason that they stage the scene is to make the murder appear to be sexual in nature when it is not, when it could be just an interpersonal or other reason for the murder. Staging happens when most often in the fantasy realm, as far as the motivation for it. But I think when we're talking about what's happening here in Delphi, I believe that this scene was staged to appear to be something else because that's what the FBI agent told us in the Ron Logan search warrant. So we have to ask ourselves, why? What were they trying? Why were they trying to divert attention somewhere else? And the other thing that when I was researching all of this, one of the things that I found out was that it's imperative that law enforcement, once upon the scene, recognize the staging, recognize the posing, and read the scene correctly. A misread crime scene, especially if it was staged to thwart the investigation or investigators or send them down a different path, those investigations can be so badly damaged by law enforcement taking the wrong direction that sometimes those cases take much longer to solve or are never solved. So we need to remember that too. The posing of bodies, I think, mean a lot of things differently to whoever the offender is and what they're trying to say. We don't know for sure if these bodies of the girls were posed or not. We've been told that it's possible that they were. And those are rumors. So I think what will happen and what's going to come out is that we may very well find out that whatever was done after they were murdered was done to thwart the investigation or throw the investigators off. And if that's the case, then this was a highly organized killer who knew exactly what was going to happen and came prepared in their mind to do this, and how in their mind how they would get away with it. So, you know, I mean, we can talk and speculate all night long, but I just feel that there was something that happened that sent them down the wrong path. We know because it was in the news media. Law enforcement gave interviews where they said early on that someone or some people alibis did not hold up. We now know that Ron Logan's alibi did not hold up. And I doubt very seriously that that was the only alibi that didn't hold up. I absolutely do not believe that Ron Logan is bridge guy. Absolutely believe that. He was not, in my opinion, at all. Hey, Chihuahua, so good to see you. But that doesn't mean that he wasn't used in some way by someone to try to make it appear that he may have been. I still say that it was not by accident that his property was used. I just feel that that location where the girls were taken and murdered was so remote that it was not something that was just not somebody wanted that there for a reason. Now, the other thing that I think we have to think about when we're talking about the motives and the staging and the posing of the bodies is what are we missing by this phenomenon? Because it's real easy to grab a hold of it and run and go off this direction. And if you remember, we've talked about this on my channel a lot about Robert Ives and what he told us in his very first early interview when he said they came upon the crime scene and it was extremely unusual. And yes, there was a lot of physical evidence, but it was odd. Now, when you're talking about a crime scene and you're calling it unusual, you're calling it odd, there's a reason for that. Whatever these gentlemen saw that day was quite unusual to them. And yes, they are local law enforcement in rural America who very rarely see anything like what they saw. So we do have to take that into consideration when we talk about this. But I just feel like they were blown out of the water. And, ISP was there and the FBI was there. And you know that they've had experience at seeing things. So, yeah. Now, I talked about where there's smoke, there's fire. And I saw a video, or I watched a video, I should say, a couple of days ago that was breaking down one person in the 2019 press conference. And I think we've talked about the person before. I know I have. And the video that I watched compared his demeanor and his body language and the things that his body language was telling us, because experts who look at people who are lying or are pathological liars or become very good sociopaths, psychopaths are very good at lying. They just are, and it's hard to discern. But this person compared the individual that I'm speaking of to Chris Watts. And we all know, or most of us should know, who Chris Watts was. He was convicted of killing his pregnant wife and his 2 young daughters in Colorado. And he gave a couple of interviews, but one of them was extremely telling. And he was standing on his front porch when he gave this interview to the news media. He had his arms folded in a closed off position in front of him. And he kept moving back and forth onto his feet, like onto his heels, like he was rocking back and forth as he was talking. His eyes were moving all over the place, back and forth. He was blinking a lot. He did a lot of hard swallows. You could see that he was even sweating a lot. And all of those are indicators of someone who's not being truthful, someone who's not telling the truth. And I think we all learned that he wasn't telling the truth in that interview. So if you take those things that I just described and you apply it to this person in the video of the press conference on April 22nd, 2019, watch that press conference and watch this person move back and forth, shuffle their feet, hard swallow, lots and lots of eye movement, licking their lips, looking down, especially when the FBI agents are talking, especially when Doug Carter is speaking, when Dave Burston gives out the information that they have Bridge Guy's voice and they have Bridge Guy's video. Oh my, there's a lot of visuals to take. I mean, it's just incredible to me. The fact that this person changed their appearance is also something that I don't see a lot of people talking about. But we were told to watch out for things like that. We were told to watch out for people who change their appearance or act differently, whatever. And he really changed his appearance. I just thought that was very interesting and telling, that we can really learn a lot from people's body language on whether or not they're telling the truth. Yep, Olivia, you were absolutely right. He shaved his beard off. He looked like the most clean-cut person. And, oh, sorry. Sorry, Pam. It blew mine away as well. But Olivia said, yeah, he shaved off his beard and cut his hair. And he cut his hair really, really short. I was just surprised by that. Oh, Alicia, I'm talking about who you think I am. I think everybody here knows, and I'm not going to mention his name. But I think we all know who we're talking about. And if you watch the video and you watch for people's reactions, you're going to know. You're going to see it. It's not going to be a surprise to anyone who we're talking about. But I've had a lot of time over the last few days to think about a lot of different things that have been said since the Ron Logan stuff came out, and I've had a lot of negativity because I kind of, came right out and said that I didn't agree with them dropping that. And I've had people send me hate emails and stuff, saying they're professionals. They're not going to do anything that's going to harm the case and all of this. And I mean, we can agree to disagree. Everyone, we don't have to agree with each other. But what I want to say on that is what I brought up the last time we were all together. If you are a professional, you should be held at a higher standard. And I still say, what is the reason that information 5 years later, when Ron Logan is deceased, what is the reason to bring that out now? I believe it's to muddy the water. I believe somebody doesn't want people talking about other things. They want this topic to be scrutinized and speculated on for at least 2 months possibly, and that's what they want. Whoever is not wanting this case solved, and trust me, I believe that there is a faction out there that does not want this case to be solved. And I'm not saying that the murder sheet are these people. Trust me, I don't. I don't believe that at all. But I do believe they're being used. And to get this information out there. So it's the whole thing about the Ron Logan search warrant. We learned a couple of things about him. We learned a couple of things about the crime scene, which in my opinion, we didn't need to know. And to me, it's hurtful to the family. And I'm going to champion for them every step of the way. There is no way that they needed to hear how bloody the crime scene was. There's no way that was, to me, that was salacious, and is the only reason that that's put out, because you're going to get a lot of likes, you're going to get a lot of subscribers, people are going to flock to your channel because they know that you're going to have this kind of information, and it bothers me. I've had people say, well, why are all these people upset with the murder sheet all the way? They're just trying to give us information. And I've told everyone, and I'm going to continue to say it, there are absolutely things that we do not need to know until the case is resolved. There's just things that we are not privy or in the, as they say, the need to know basis. We are not in that realm of need to know. And there's a lot of us who would like to know. And of course, you know, we all want justice for Abby and Libby. We all want people to come together for the families and be behind them and help to hold them up, because I just can't imagine having to sit there and hear this every day, day in and day out, of people talking about my child and how they were brutally murdered, and go on and on and on about it without any regard for me and what it might do to me. We can do a great service in this community. We can be absolute great servants for the families, for the victims, and keeping the story out there. But I'm here to tell you, I just don't think that this information needed to be out. It's, to me, it's just, it's not, cryptex, I agree. It's important to only talk about facts, but we don't need to know all the facts. We are not law enforcement. We're not investigators, and we do not need to know that as the general public. The only way we need to know that is when this case is resolved. I'm sorry, I disagree with you. I'm just going to disagree with that. We have to keep everything factual. We need to talk about facts when we're talking about things that we know to be true. And we don't want to be embellishing them or making accusations that are not true. And I know somebody said recently, and it may have been, I may have heard this on Frank Meister's live last night. I don't remember. I think they said they have a source that's saying this stuff is being released not because law enforcement wants it released, but because someone within the court system is releasing it, which again brings me back to why and who is that person that's driving that phenomenon of having this stuff released. Because, I mean, I just, if law enforcement really wants it out there, I can't imagine what the reason would be. At all. I know that Ron Logan knew a lot of people, had a lot of friends, that were in the meth world, but I just don't get what the whole reason would be behind doing this 5 years later. It just doesn't make any sense. And I do believe we have to be careful. I think that we have to keep an open mind. Anything is possible. And sure, is it possible that Ron Logan was involved in these murders? Of course it's possible. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And I think it's interesting that Bridge Guy's description went from red hair, and now we've got people talking about at least 3 POIs that I know of that are all white-haired. I mean, it just blows my mind. There is a faction in Delphi that does not want this case solved, and they are putting smoke out to muddy the case. And that's what I'm finding. The more I delve into going back, because I felt after December when Anthony Shots became relevant, which I still think the Anthony Shots and Kagan and Tony Klein stuff is relevant. I absolutely do. But one of the things that I told myself in December was, Kristen, you've got to go back to the beginning and you've got to re-examine everything, and you've got to look at it with a whole different perspective than what you thought you knew and what you thought you know. The fact that the police officer that committed suicide, I still go back to say that that has something to do with this. And I think it's been written off as, no, it's no big deal. But the Indiana State Police doesn't think that it's no big deal, because they are investigating it. I do think that we all are aware, or should be at this point in time, that it's highly, highly probable that the girls were lured to the bridge that day. Probably by talking with the Anthony Shots profile. That's how they got them there. But this was a highly organized crime. And I just can't deny that. It's out there. It just seems. I'm also going to let everybody know, you need to go look at John Kelly Profiler. He uploaded a new portion of his profile to Bridge Guy. Definitely go watch and listen to that. That was really interesting for me this week. And anytime we've got those kinds of individuals who are experts talking to us, we need to all, as I tell my 4-year-old grandson, we all need to put our listening ears on and be quiet and listen. Really, truly listen. And experts know a lot more than we do. People who work in law enforcement, Um, Michelle, who's in here, who is my moderator, she's a CSI. And Michelle knows more than we do. She knows more. And we have to listen to them. And when they tell us that we need to be careful, then we need to be careful. Ken Maines dropped a new Delphi episode as well. I love Ken. He was going to come on my show. He said he wanted to come on my show, but he's under contract, so he can't. But Ken's great. And if you guys haven't watched him or aren't aware of him, you need to go watch him. He is also a former detective who has a ton of experience. And I love listening to him and how he breaks down cases. And it's funny to listen to him say that he really didn't want to go back and talk about Delphi, but he did so because his subscribers wanted him to. It's always wonderful to hear content creators do what their subscribers would like to see them. John, wasn't it though? I really, really enjoyed it. Cryptex, I can't agree with you more. He's just amazing. Such a great guy, really, truly. He knows his stuff, and he breaks it down so well. And it reminds me of Cop Facts, because Perry's the same way. When he's talking to you about a case and breaking it down, he does it in layman's terms that are easy to understand. What did this? Hang on a second. I'm just sorry. I just read something. See, I heard that it's a possibility that Ron Logan was tied to Tony Klein, not Kagan. So that's what I've heard. Based upon there's a there's a big group in this region of Indiana that a lot of people belong to. I'm not going to mention the name of the group because I really don't want them coming after me in any way, shape, or form. But if you go out there and you search, you guys, you can find it. It's like, if you guys know who BH is, he belongs in that group as well. I'll give that information, so if you guys want to go look, you can. Yeah, Michelle, Perry is. Sorry, Dave. I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I think Ken's amazing. We all are entitled to our opinions, though. And everybody's not for everybody. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Hey, Brad, how are you? It's so good to see you. Hey, Del Bell, welcome. Thank you so much for showing. And she says, the murder sheet is not currently and has never and likely will never act out of concern for this investigation. They certainly will not be acting in a manner conducive to symbiosis between law enforcement and the media. Like I said, I just really wish they hadn't released what they did. I think that it was interesting that they put out there that possibly they wanted to record the crime, because that has been talked about. I hope that that's not the case. I hope there's not something out there in the deep dark web flowing around that people are watching of that. That would just break my heart if that was the true if that turns out to be true. It is it's interesting. And it's very possible, Johnny, yes. I mean, that is very possible. I mean, I'm not saying one or the other because I don't know for sure. I mean, Ron could have known both of them. I just know that the rumor that I heard was regarding Tony and not Kagan. That's all I was saying. Hey, Dana. Good to see you. Hey, little Pookie. You snuck in here. How are you? Hey, Michelle, have you heard from Jennifer? How's she doing? Um, It's just interesting, Dave. I like people, again, like you said, who stick with the facts. They don't try to embellish and they speak to me on a level that I can understand. Um, and I believe he does. But anyway, there's a lot going on with the case. We all know that. We've talked about it. There's so many layers to it. When I interviewed Perry, we talked about a lot of things. He feels that there is a real good chance that there is a meth connection to this case. I know that a lot of people, what I laugh about when I talk about this, you all remember, well, for those of you that have been following since day one, hey, AJ, thank you so much for dropping that for me. Thank you so much. If you get a moment, if you could drop Perry's, I'd appreciate it as well. Um, but yeah, the for those of you that have been following the case as I have since day one of the things that happened early on when I first heard about the case, for those of you that don't know, the case was first coined by the press as the Snapchat murders. And they quickly got that changed and didn't want the press using that. And if you notice, it's not in the press anymore. They don't talk about the Snapchat murders. But early on, the very first thing I thought was that they were talking to somebody online. It was just something that came to me because in this day and age with social media and with our teenagers where they are with it, every child nowadays has their own cell phone. I mean, it's so unusual for them not, even though Abby did not have one. Abby didn't have her own cell phone. She used Libby's iPad, from what I understand, or her phone if she needed to make a call. But yeah, it was called the Snapchat murders, and I really felt like they had been something had happened or whatever with somebody that they were talking with online. I didn't really think about it being so much of a catfish scenario. I just felt that it was something that happened online. Kids bully each other online. I thought about that situation. Had it been some kind of a friend thing gone right or wrong? I mean, they got into this big argument or whatever. And, we don't like to think about these things because they seem so crazy, but teenagers and kids this age do kill. I mean, it's not something that doesn't happen. So that crossed my mind, but we were all being told no, and we were all being sent down a different direction. No, that didn't happen. The family was telling us no, law enforcement was telling us no, and it was still being talked about on Reddit. It was still being talked about on Facebook and in the groups, and here on YouTube. People were still talking about it, but just not as much, because it was being told to us, no, 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 no. Well, I feel the same about this possibly having a bigger and broader net than we've ever imagined, not only because of CSAM, but because of meth and because of corruption. And I think that all of those things are going to play into this case once we get a resolution. I think we're going to all see that. There's just something that doesn't smell right. And even Perry said, when I interviewed him, he felt like somebody did something in the beginning to push the investigation in a certain direction, and not out of the goodness of the investigation. And I agree with him. We could point fingers at who that might be or may not be. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that, simply because you can ruin people's lives if it turns out to not be true. And I'm not ready to go down that path with my channel. I just don't want to do that to people. But I think that we're all smart enough that we can kind of figure out who some of these players are. Thanks, Michelle. Just let me know if she answers you. I had some family stuff this weekend, and I didn't get a chance to talk to her at all. And I'm really worried about her. So if you could just let me know. And so a lot of people, that's what we do. We have a conviction or something that we feel. And then when the tide turns and the majority starts going this other direction, it's called peer pressure, folks. We had it in high school. It's still there, and it's in this community. And it's funny how peer pressure causes people to do all kinds of things. There is a huge problem in that area of Indiana with meth, in Logansport, in Kokomo, in Peru, in Frankfurt, in Delphi. I mean, the list goes on and on. Young America. I mean, if you look at all of those little towns and those little locations, there's an issue. And one of the reasons meth is called the rural America drug. And it's because it can be made out of most everything that's in your household, in your kitchen sink if you want, and out in the country, people don't smell the chemicals. You can do it in a farmhouse and your closest neighbor is 5 miles down the road, which happens a lot. They do it in barns, or they do it wherever. And we need to look at that. I mean, we can't just dismiss the obvious with what's happening here. Plus, you have Indiana Packers, which is butted right up against the trails and the Monon High Bridge. I mean, they're right there. What drug do you think you could get away with using that's going to amp you up to be able to be on a kill floor for 8 hours a day? I'm going to go with meth. People don't understand, and True Crime Jesus did a wonderful video on this very topic, on the Indiana Packers and what that kill floor does psychologically to the people who work there. And that is why they have such a huge turnover. 4 months is what I've heard that people can stand it. The smell is horrific alone, ungodly smell. And then the actual act of killing. And why they still kill that way, I don't understand. We're in 2022 and they're still utilizing men or women to stand there with cutting instruments and bleed these pigs. I just don't understand. Um, and I know that all of us, we enjoy well, there's probably vegetarians in here, and I don't want to upset anyone, but for most of us, we enjoy our pork. We enjoy our meats and stuff like that. But these places that these people work, the working conditions are horrific. Horrific. And they don't always look for the most up and up type of people to work there because most people wouldn't want to work there. That's why they get in trouble for hiring people who are illegal in the country. They get in trouble for hiring people who are felons, or they're hiring people that have warrants out for their arrest, things like that. So those things all have to be looked at. Very funny, unsolved. That's funny. I just know that it's very sad to think about what the drug problem has done and how it could be related to this case. And I'm not going to dispel the fact that I think it could very well have some underlying reason here as to why this happened. And especially if this was some sort of a retaliation, which has been brought up numerous times. Law enforcement's not going to talk about that. They're not talking about much. I think the reason, most definitely, meth can cause all kinds of psychotic breaks, for sure. Oh, no, no, no. I didn't think you did, Unsolved. You're fine. You're fine. I didn't think that you did. But I'm always careful because I don't want to offend anyone. I respect people for, their religious beliefs, and I don't try to be one of those people that doesn't. Let's put it that way. I think that we have to look at Packers. I've said that before, just because of what happens there. And if what we know to be true happened at the crime scene, whoever did that knew exactly what they were doing and how to do it. And somebody that works on that kill floor would know that. So, but there's been a lot of good information put out here in the last, I would say in the last 10 days or so, by some YouTubers that I've been quite impressed with and have been watching some of it. And it goes back to what I've always asked you guys to do, is to just try to keep an open mind when you're talking about stuff and try not to get into that narrow-mindedness of looking only at one POI and one way it happened, and that's the only way it could have happened, because there are so many ways that this could have gone down, and honestly, we don't know how many people are involved. And the more I keep thinking about it, the more I think that there's going to be a lot of arrests made, and I think in my mind they're getting ready to make their arrest is going to be more than one person, and they want everything to be tied in a bow, so to speak, so they can present it and they'll all be there. I know that we don't like to think about conspiracy theories, and I don't like to push those at all. That's really not what I'm trying to do. But I do think that there's something going on in Delphi that's muddying this case for a reason, and especially online. I see it absolutely happening online. Johnny Kramer says, ladies, Miss Kristen behind the crime door, can we agree that some made photos, hopped, and faked videos on YouTube? Yes, happens every day. People make fake all kinds of things. They make fake text messages. They make fake reports. They make, there's been rumors out there that what the murder sheet released was faked. I mean, it's in this day and age with the technology that we have available to us, somebody who is really good at hacking or doing that kind of nefarious kind of stuff could easily fake things. So we always have to take everything that we get or are given with a grain of salt. And one of my friends here on YouTube told me to not trust anyone that you haven't sat across the table with and broke bread. So, because you don't know who those people are. And if they're coming to you with information and they're so-called a source, or they're so-called people that are giving you information that nobody else has, it's real. You really have to question why. Why are they coming to you? Why would they be going to a tiny YouTube channel or whatever rather than just going to law enforcement? I mean, and I agree with that, Dave. The worst of them are the ones who accuse the family. I'm so tired of that I can't even address it anymore. So Alicia says, I'm not going to lie. I've been thinking about in April when ISP was hiring experienced officers and shortening training to 6 weeks and hoping something big is on the horizon. I agree. I absolutely agree. There is something happening. There is a reason why they're hiring experienced officers and not sending them through their regular police academy training. There's something going on. And we know that this is the CSAM stuff is big. So, I mean, good for you, Pookie. I no longer trust anything said by those that fabricated the rumors. There's a lot of people that talk about rumors and, and everything. And like I said, I know that we all want information and we all want it now or yesterday, but we have to be careful. And I agree with that, Olivia. Sometimes you don't know those you break bread with. That's absolutely true. Do we ever or can we ever truly know someone completely? I don't know the answer to that. Because when you hear about the horrific things that human beings do to one another, especially those that they profess to love, it makes you wonder. But there's just a lot of interesting things. And one of the things I wanted to talk about with you guys tonight, and let me see if I can do this. Hold on a second, because it's really small. So I'm going to try and see if I can get this bigger. So let me see. Just give me a moment, guys. I have an interview that Mayor Shane Evans did in the Wabash magazine, spring summer 2017. It was published on September the 8th, 2017. And I wanted to go over some of it with you guys. So on Monday, February 13th, 2017, 13-year-old Abby Williams and her best friend, 14-year-old Libby German, hiked from their homes in Delphi, Indiana, to explore the nearby Monon High Bridge. With their parents' permission, they spent the afternoon walking along the abandoned train track. But as evening fell and the time came for them to meet up with their families, the girls were nowhere to be found. The search began that night and continued to the next day, when the girls' bodies were found and police announced that they suspected foul play was involved. 5 days later, a man seen walking along the Monon High Bridge around the same time as the two girls was named as a suspect in their murders. But the case remains open, and the girls' city will glow with orange porch lights until it is solved. Watching as Delphi made headlines from the most tragic of reasons and grief swept through his town was Mayor Shane Evans, class of 2012. Wabash magazine sat down with Evans to find out how the people of the city and its mayor are doing in the wake of such tragic loss. How were you first made aware everything was going on that evening? Shane: I had gone to a Frankfort City Council meeting that night just to watch. The fire department got called out around 7 p.m., and I didn't check my phone because I was in the meeting. When I got back, I had a text from a friend that said 2 girls are missing. I remember calling our chief of police, and I went out to the bridge. I was hoping for the best. I was hoping they had wandered off, maybe stayed the night at a friend's house, and they were scared to call because they knew people were out looking for them. But my hope was that they would show up in the morning. I think I slept 15 minutes that night. The next 24 hours must have been chaotic as everyone searched for Abby and Libby. Is everything a blur to you? No, it's still very vivid. On Tuesday morning, I got a call pretty early from the chief of police saying we were going to open up the fire department and start having search crews. I think everybody rolled in around 6:30 a.m. The Indiana Department of Homeland Security was already there, ready to provide logistical support. Throughout the day, we had volunteers coming in from the community, and various governmental agencies offered their services with search and rescue teams, as well as dive teams. And then came the news that the girls' bodies had been found, correct? It was a wave of emotion. Monday and Tuesday, we were just hoping we would find Abby and Livy alive. And then the devastation, frustration, and bitterness that we felt after we found them. I tried to hold it together the best I could for the volunteers from the search parties who were at the fire station, the law enforcement officers, and especially the girls' families. How well did you end up actually holding it together? That first day, I was an emotional wreck. I cried, and I hadn't even gone through what the law enforcement officers had gone through, what the families of the girls had gone through, and the community as a whole. I don't think it affects people just within the city of Delphi or Carroll County. It affects people across the state. People became more vigilant and have this in the back of their minds. It affects everyone. We all grieve together. There was obviously a lot of grief being felt, and that still is felt by everyone in Delphi. But did you notice a visible change? There was an air of gravity within the community, and I think you could feel its weight. And you still can to some extent. Normally, it's a city where you wave, smile, and say hello. But for the first time, and for the first 2 or 3 weeks, everyone just kind of looked down at the ground, maybe gave a little nod, but it definitely wasn't the same. Though you have a law degree from Indiana University, when you studied at Wabash, you were a chemistry major. Could anything have prepared you for something like this? No, I don't think you can train anybody for this. And I think if it were to happen again, everybody would still feel the same emotions. I think that you learn at Wabash becomes a part of you. Thinking critically, acting responsibly, leading effectively, living humanely, conducting yourself as a gentleman at all times. That's helpful. But I don't know if you necessarily should be trained on how to feel or act in instances like this, because you can't anticipate how you would feel in these situations. Different people grieve differently, and it's important to feel these emotions and get them out. I can't imagine trying to bottle them up. I mean, I tried for 4 hours before I broke down. It's been months since the investigation started, and progress is hard to measure. What comes next? Everyone is hoping for closure. I think the community will feel better if this case is solved. And I think law enforcement is optimistic they're going to solve it. There are more than 19,000 tips the last time I checked, and they are still following up on the leads. The resources that were there before are still available. There are fewer FBI on the site, but they're still just a phone call away, and it looks like the investigation has dwindled down. But really, it's just more streamlined and efficient. It's very rare to have a case like this, so it's not something that anybody signed up for. But the community support and the way everyone has rallied around each other makes me proud to call Delphi my home. And hold on, there was a couple of others I wanted to say. What do you think of when you see those orange lights? They are beacons of hope, a hope that a person or persons who committed these egregious acts are found and brought to justice. They are a constant reminder of the 2 young lives with the potential to do so much in this world, which were taken from us. They are a symbol of the closeness of this community and the feelings of grief we collectively share. A reminder that we are in this together, and each of us individually is part of something greater than ourselves. So I really wanted to share that with you. That was from Shane Evans, the mayor, and that was done in September of 2017. August of 2017. So, let's see. Let's go back up here and look at some questions. Hey, Daz. Good to see you. They have to process about 5 tips a day, 24/7 for the 5 years to go through them, and then some. Yeah, they had, like, I think over 60,000 tips by now or more. That's a lot of tips. And to have to vet every single one of them, I'm sure that, they've got the software that the FBI gave them that sorts by keywords and things like that. But they have to go through them and make sure they don't miss anything. And like Doug Carter said, once they go through them all, then they start over and go back through them again. So that takes a while. Good night, Truth Justice. Thanks for stopping in. We certainly appreciate you here. Yeah, that's very true, Pookie. New recruits for police are down all over the U.S. That is the truth. Yeah, Michelle says that she wishes she was on this investigation when this happened, but she lives in Florida. Yeah, I bet you do. I just, I'm just reading some of the comments, guys. Sorry. Oh, Michelle, that is kind of crazy that you were in Bloomington when it happened. Yeah, the social environment in our world right now is a mess. I'm so tired of the hate. Okay, what? Yeah, I just saw this little Pookie today. I was watching the video. It was a video of Tobe in his office, and the reporter asked him the question, but you were told by the families that the girls would go off without telling people where they were going, and sometimes they would end up at each other's houses, but sometimes they would go other places, and that Libby had been wanting to go see her mom, so maybe she had run away. And he said that yes, they were told all those things, and I can guarantee you that Becky Patty refuted that harshly, that they never ran away. They always knew where they were. And I mean, if you know where the girls lived, how are they just going to take off and just start walking the highway to get to each other's houses? I mean, they lived a ways away from each other. So I just don't see that happening, but I was surprised by that. Um that whole conversation. Hey, Copfax. How are you, Perry? Good to see you. Good to see you. Always good to see you. No, I think you're right, Vanessa. I think that they said something like 60,000. You know what, though, Michelle? You know why I think he said that? Because he said in that same interview that I watched today, I went back and watched it and re-listened to it. Tope says that the reason they told them that they didn't feel that they needed to be worried about someone out there hunting other people or other children was because they felt it was what happened was only related to these victims. He says that in that interview. I watched it. And so that's huge to me because back then they were thinking one thing or the other. Either they were catfished there by somebody who hurt them, or it was targeted for some reason. So, everybody say hello to Copfax. He's in the house. And again, I watched that video today too, where Doug Carter is talking about the voice and he's talking about the image. And he said if people would stop paying attention to Bridge Guy's face and head and just kind of cut that off the body and focus on the physical aspect of the body, the gait, the positioning of the hands in the pockets, how they move, that's what he thinks that people will recognize. They will recognize that as their brother or father or uncle or grandfather or the person they work with or whatever. And he said that over and over to us. Kristen, you said AW used LG's devices sometimes. Could AW possibly have been chatting with Shots and gave location that day to meet us? I'm assuming, Mrs. Thang, that if that happened, that would have been, they would have found that on Libby's iPad on the devices, and they didn't show any of that in the affidavits against Anthony Shots. When you go through that affidavit, it doesn't talk anything about that. So, I mean, obviously it's possible. It's very possible. But honestly, I mean, they're best friends. And if if your best friend has these devices, whether it be phones or iPads or iPods or tablets or whatever, you're going to let your best friend borrow them, especially if she's spending the night with you and she's over or whatever, and you're going to allow her to use them. Abby had a boyfriend. How do you think it was possible for her to have a boyfriend who didn't even live in the same city if she wasn't able to talk to him somehow? Oh. I found some of it extremely interesting. Corgi Mama. A lot of it, I think, may or may not be something. We don't know who their sources are, so like I said, you have to take all of that with a grain of salt when you don't. But there was certainly a lot of interesting information that they gave. What did Digital ask? I missed it. Oh, Digital. I had said, this is why I think they didn't release it, why HLN didn't, because their attorneys would not allow them to. I feel that when they obtained those documents, when HLN got them, I think that there was the reason they didn't go public with their HLN show faster than they did was because there was a haggling going on between their attorneys. They wanted to make sure that no one was going to sue them. I don't know if they're gagged or not. I imagine that there is more to the interview than we saw possibly. There may be questions that were asked of Kagan that we didn't get to see the answers to. That's always possible. I do believe that law enforcement would definitely have told them what they could and could not talk about. I do believe it's possible that every witness in this case has been gagged. And I wrote about that on Reddit a year and a half ago. when I talked about the fact that witnesses would have been told from the get-go, you don't discuss this case with anyone because you are a potential witness that's going to be called to testify in this case. And they don't want those witnesses talking to anyone. So yeah, I think they've tried to remain. I think you're right, Donald, in the fact that they have tried to remain on the good side of ISP and law enforcement. Because whenever you're in a news organization and media, you want to maintain that relationship if at all possible, so that you get the scoops or you get the information first. So it's very, very possible. Well, it really bothers me. It bothered me. That's why I changed when I had it posted on my community page. That's why I changed it. I got a lot of flack for that. People, the Murder Sheet fans came after me, but I stand by what I did. I stand by how I feel about it. It's just my opinion. I think it was salacious, and that was the reason behind it. I guarantee you, if you look at their subscription count before and after these releases, look and see how much they gained. That says a lot. Melodramatic Monday says, pointing back on something you said later, I also read that Tony Klein possibly knew Ron Logan. Have you heard anyone give a source for this? It really dropped my jaw when I read it. I have not heard the source that said that, but I do know that it has something to do with an organization that he belongs to, that friends of Ron Logan also belong to. I do know what that organization is, but I'm not going to put their name out in my chat. He's not going to answer that, Corgi Mama. He's not going to tell you that information. Hey, Lipsha, how are you? I did. And the reason that I did was because I'm going to use the money that I do get from it. We're going to donate it once a month to a charity that we decide on. I'm thinking possibly the Doe Project might be our first one. I haven't firmly decided on that. I've got 3 or 4 in mind, and I'm going to put a poll out and have you guys decide with me or help me decide what we should do. But a lot of time goes into to doing the research and stuff. But yeah. Thank you, Dave, very much. No problem at all, Melodramatic Money. If I'm telling you, if I know, I will tell you if I can. But I heard the same rumor. I just don't know what their source of that rumor is. I don't know where they're getting that information from. Johnny says, I think it was a bunch of them, Chadwell, Greeno, Klein, Kurtz, and Minnie, I think, knew each other themselves, said on camera they belonged to something, a club. Well, I know that some of them belonged to the Kokomo crew or were associated with the Kokomo crew, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a different organization. It is. I never realized, Unsolved, how much time it would take to do all of this until I started doing it. And it truly can be a full-time job if you want it to be, just by the basic research that's put into it. Because that's one of the things that I do is I research this stuff. I don't just use others' content or whatever. I mean, I do a lot of reading on the case. I try to go back and look at old newspaper articles. I try to listen to all of the interviews from law enforcement and all the major players in the case. If you look at my channel, I have a Delphi playlist. A lot of those interviews and all of that is there in that playlist. I'm adding to it every time I find something new that I think is important. All of those are fact-based videos that you'll find there. And yeah, I mean, it's important to try and look at everything that you can find out there and read when you're putting this together. And like I said, I just like to find topics that I like tonight when we talked about the staging and the posing of the bodies and how those differ and what constitutes what. I just think that that's something that's really important for us to know and have a clear understanding of, since we've been told now by what's been released that this is definitely something that occurred at the crime scene. So one of the problems that I have with what the murder sheet has done is the fact that now the media has picked up on it, and the media is giving them playtime and talking about them cracking this case open. And that just makes me angry, because I don't believe that anything that they've put out here has cracked this case wide open. That's just my opinion. So, thank you so much, Unsolved. It's hard. It really is. I have big shoulders, and I can take the heat. I can take the criticism. I just feel like I have nothing personally against Anya or Kevin. I had them on my show. I interviewed them. They are both extremely nice people. I think they've done great coverage on the Burger Chef murders. I love the fact that they are calling out law enforcement in that case. And I give them kudos to that. I just disagree with what they've been doing by unloading these documents and in the way that they're doing it. There's a reason why they do it in sections, and instead of just putting it all out there for the good of the case. And they do it in this week, and then we got to wait 3 weeks for this one and 4 weeks for this one. And there's a reason behind that, you guys. So that's all I'm saying. All right, Dave, I don't know where that's coming from, but you're not going to get away with that here on my channel, as he is going to be on my channel this week. So that I won't put up with. Sometimes, little Pookie, that's what it's called. And it's really strange. Was that weird, Tech? What did you think about that, Tech? I'm like, I just told them that that person is going to be on my channel this week as a guest, and that's what he chose to say. So that's not flying with me. Yeah, that's another thing that bothered me. Those are documents that came from a court of law. The last thing you need to be doing is putting your watermark all over them as if they're yours. Those documents aren't yours. And it was just, yeah, I totally agree with you. I do try. I'm not perfect. Um, I'm not. I'm not a perfect person. And I do differ on opinion with a lot of things with people, but I really try to do it in a kind manner. And that's why I love him so much. Tech Death is right. We can all disagree and be buds. People do not have to always agree with me. You don't have to always agree with me. So, in fact, I really wouldn't want a channel where every single person in here was agreeing with me all the time. I mean, that's not good. That's not how to have a good conversation. We need people that have different ideas in here, you know. Ches Pam, I think you're right. She says there's just so much getting stirred up in this case. I truly believe it's going to be solved soon. I think you're right. And I hope that it's sooner than later. I agree with you, John. I've seen that out there too. I've seen that, but it happens with everything, you know. So, all right, Grizz, what are you disagreeing with now? I love him too. Just so you guys know, he is such a chill person, such a nice person. You could not meet a nicer grizzly bear. Trust me. Exactly. As Michelle said, we love difference of opinions here as long as it remains respectful. You have to be respectful. And you don't, if you don't want to be respectful, then you have to go somewhere else. Hey, Teresa. So well said. So well said. Peace to Abby and Libby. Oh, you're funny. And it is. I mean, you know, everybody can't agree all the time. We're all different. We all have differences of opinion on all kinds of things. So it's just it's, you know, it's just one of those things. What does it say, Johnny? What gets me is the crime channels that attack people and me. What gives it like it's like they attack anyone that asks a question in their chat, not the channel others. You know, I don't understand why you would want to attack people that are asking questions. To have a good conversation, you absolutely have to have people asking questions. I think the more questions, the better. It gets us all thinking. And that's what we need to do. All of us need to be thinking about things. Digital says, I hope soon, but I'm afraid that the faction that doesn't want this solved is somehow involved with these leaks and it's going to screw something up. Well, I hope, beyond hope, Digital, that the people that know that this is happening, which believe me, I don't think that all of law enforcement is happy that this is happening. I think they know that what's going on. I think they're watching a lot of things. And I think that they will have a handle on that. Hey, Jennifer. I was just talking about you. I hope you're feeling better. Please tell me you are. I've missed you. Well, that's the truth. She says it best because some creators are narcissists. Yeah, that's very true. Not naming names. I won't do that. But it's like anything. There are people that are out there covering stuff that's not here for the right reasons. It's just that simple. I have been worried about you, and I apologize because I didn't get a chance to even talk to you this weekend because I was so busy with my family stuff. But yeah, I'm glad you're better. So I just, no, Dave, it's not. He is going to be on my show as a guest this week on Thursday. And on Friday night. And that is why I don't want you to disrespect any guests that I have on my show. If you don't like him, then just don't come to the show, and please do not talk badly about him in chat. If you do, you will be removed. It's that simple. It's respect. That's all I demand. So but it's my channel. See, that's what you don't understand. If it's what I require here. I'm not being disrespectful to Murder Sheet. I just told you it's not personal. And you can have whatever you want to with Skip. Just don't show up for the show. That's it. I am so much happier that you are feeling better, Jennifer. So I was going to tell you guys one other thing. Hold on a second. One of the things that the news was reporting about the whole stuff with Murder Sheet, they were talking about Reddit. And I thought it was really funny because they were talking about Delphi murders and how big the sub was. They talked about Abby and Libby, the Libby and Abby sub and all this stuff, and how these people that are in social media that's following the case. And I'm like, where have you guys been for the last 5 years? I'm like, come on, these Reddit subs just didn't happen overnight. They've been around. Delphi's the Delphi murders sub is the original sub. I just thought it was funny. They got 63,000 members, and they got a shout out on the local news in Indianapolis. So I'm sure that made them happy over there. But I just think it's funny that people are still all talking about Ron Logan, and I just really wish that wasn't happening. That's all. Because that's, it's new to us, the information, but law enforcement had that information for 5 years. So there were a lot of warrants in this case, a lot of warrants written. There are so many warrants that we don't even have a clue as to how many. So this was just one. Thank you, Johnny. We sure try to keep it that way. I really like it when I go through a whole live without having any hiccups. It's such a nice feeling because I know that doesn't happen everywhere. And so exactly. Ron Logan isn't Bridge Guy, and he unfortunately is no longer with us, and he's not able to defend himself. So but So just so you guys know, we were talking about the corruption in the Carroll County election, and the election board did certify the election even amid the controversy, just so you know. Even though they had an injunction to delay it. So it was so funny because there were 9 provisional ballots that were submitted, and those 9 provisional ballots, 8 of those people had already voted. So I mean, it's interesting what's going on there. But anyway, you guys, that's really all I had for tonight. I wanted to just talk to you guys a little bit about the staging and posing of the bodies, what the motivation for the killers are when they do that, which I think we were able to get through. And then, we just discussed some of the aspects of the search warrant and where that stuff's headed. And I do think that we learned about the weapon from the search warrant. So I think that we can stop wondering about that. At least I think we know that. But yeah, I am so glad that I have you all here and that you all show up for me. I so appreciate that. If you guys have any other cases that you want me to look at, please email those to me. If John France is still in my chat, if he will email me, I have a question for him. I was trying to say something else. I do think that Teresa's right. All the puzzle pieces are starting to come together. And I think that if we have patience and just try to remain patient, we will see that that's happening. 1L Michelle, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you were here and that you enjoyed it. Thank you, Unsolved Crimes. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much. Much love back to you. Thank you, John. I'll look after the show. I'll send it to you right after my show. And Jennifer, please take care of yourself, please, because you still need to be resting. I know that it's hard. But thank you, guys. I look forward to talking to you all tomorrow night. Don't forget about my show. Tomorrow I have Ash from Ashes to Ash TV. And she will be an amazing interview. I think you guys will all enjoy that one. And then on Friday, I have the captain from True Crime Garage and Skip Jansen. So that one will most definitely be a good one. So I certainly can't wait for those both. Thanks, Dave. No problem. No foul. Just remember, okay? And I know you're here for all the right reasons. And I know that you want justice for the girls. Digital, you take care of yourself. Grizz, I'm so glad that you were here with me. Tech Death, if you haven't fallen asleep yet, thanks for being here too, my dear. And Michelle, you are always, always wonderful. And thank you so much for being here and keeping that chat going. You do such a great job. And Perry, if you're still out there, thank you again for dropping in. I love that you're here. And Gonzo, if you're out there listening, big hugs to you. And I will talk to you all later. See you guys tomorrow. Everyone, have a great evening.